He's pretending to be a lawyer, my sister told the disciplinary committee, smirking in her pearl earrings. No way he even got into law school. He's a fraud. My parents sat behind her, arms crossed, faces blank, complicit. The committee didn't even look at me. Just passed around the sealed file. Then the presiding judge, Judge Lawson, opened it, scanned the top page, and stopped breathing. His brow lifted. He looked up at me. "Mr. Hamilton," he said slowly, "you argued before me last year, the Fitzgerald case. Your cross-examination was, I called it the most brilliant defense I've seen in 30 years. The room went dead quiet. My sister's smile twitched. The court reporter froze. Judge Lawson flipped to the second page. Bar admission verified. JD from Northwestern. Law review highest honors. Clerked under Justice Rowe. He looked directly at me. "Why is your family claiming otherwise?" I didn't speak. I just stared at my sister, the one who used to steal my notebooks and now wanted to steal my name. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a hit job. And I knew exactly when it started. The day I refused to fund her husband's failing startup. The day I told her no. This wasn't about law. It was about revenge. But she wasn't ready for how I fight. Not in court. Not on record. And definitely not alone. Judge Lawson turned the page and cleared his throat. "Mr. Hamilton, are you aware that your family submitted not 1 but 4 signed complaints? All alleging you falsified your education, credentials, and bar membership?" I nodded once. "And you didn't respond in writing?" "No, Your Honor." "Why not?" I looked across the panel. "Because they've spent a lifetime doubting my silence. I figured I'd let the evidence speak louder than I ever could." Behind me, I heard my mother shift in her seat. Not a word from her. Not a sound of defense. Just distance. My father stared straight ahead like he wasn't involved at all. But his signature had been on the complaint. I'd seen it. They weren't just backing my sister. They were leading the charge. 6 weeks earlier, I'd refused to wire her husband $200,000 for a crypto logistics app that had already been rejected by 4 accelerators. I didn't insult him. I didn't mock the pitch. I just said no. A week later, a rumor started circulating around my firm that my credentials were fake. Then an anonymous email hit the HR inbox. Now here we were. My license, my name, my future, all dragged through mud. By people who once called me son. But the judge wasn't the only one with files. And my next move would do more than prove my innocence. It would dismantle theirs. The hearing recessed for review. I stepped into the hallway, cold marble echoing under my shoes, while my family remained behind closed doors, still pretending they were victims. I wasn't alone for long. A man in a gray suit approached, sleek, mid-50s, confident. "Mr. Hamilton," he said. "I'm David Carver, ethics investigator. I was assigned to verify your background. I also reviewed the anonymous complaint that came through." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" He handed me a folder. "Completely fabricated. You passed every bar check, background verification, and employment review. But this," he tapped the second tab, "this is where it gets interesting. Inside were documents tied to my sister's husband. Emails traced to a dummy Gmail account. IP logs matching his condo's network. Draft versions of the complaint, with tracked edits. His name showed up in the metadata. And more. Attached were bank statements. Wired transfers made from my mother's account directly into his LLC, after the complaint was submitted. Bribery? Coercion?" I asked. David shrugged. "That's for your lawyers to define. But the optics? Not great." I looked through the folder, pulse steady. My family had gone to war behind my back. Now I had evidence. And for the first time, the law was no longer between us. It was mine to aim. Because when your family tries to bury you, you better hand them the shovel. The following morning, I submitted my own packet to the disciplinary board. It was simple, plain, professional, just like me. Included were certified transcripts, bar admission confirmations, letters of reference from 2 federal judges, and the forensic trace of the complaint edits, all tracked to my brother-in-law's IP address. The cherry on top? The wire transfers from my parents. Judge Lawson read every page. When he looked up, there was no doubt left in the room. "Mr. Hamilton, your credentials are not only legitimate, they're exceptional. This hearing is now being reviewed as a potential abuse of the disciplinary process." My sister's smile cracked. "Abuse?" she whispered. "You filed knowingly false accusations," the judge replied. "And based on Mr. Hamilton's evidence, we're forwarding the matter to the state bar for review." I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because they weren't ready for the version of me that prepared in silence. They were still clinging to the boy they used to shame at dinner tables. The kid with too many opinions. The teenager they said talked too smart for his own good. Now that voice carried weight. And it had just been weaponized legally. Outside the hearing, my sister chased after me. "You're going to destroy this family," she hissed. I stopped, turned, and said, "No. You just tried to destroy me. I'm simply filing the paperwork." 2 days later my parents called. Not to apologize, of course not. Just to talk. My father left a voicemail. "We didn't understand the consequences. You're taking this too far. Families fight. They forgive." Forgive? They had tried to dismantle my career. A decade of study, internships, nights I fell asleep on case briefs. And now that the legal system was turning back toward them, they wanted the warmth of family again? I didn't respond. Instead, I walked into the glass conference room of my own firm and joined a video call with the Board of Judicial Conduct. Not as a defendant, as a witness. Turns out, falsifying official complaints to the bar isn't just unethical. It's criminal. I handed over every file. Emails. Call logs. Transfer receipts. My sister's husband had created an entire paper trail of malice. Forged email headers, ghost-written statements, even a fake letterhead. The board asked me one question. "Do you want to press charges?" I looked out the window at the skyline. They handed me shame. "I built skyscrapers out of it." "Yes," I said. The screen went silent. Then the lead investigator nodded. "Understood. We'll proceed." I leaned back, exhaled once, and let it sink in. I wasn't fighting for validation anymore. I was fighting for the record. And for the first time, it would be theirs that went up in flames. By the end of the week, the calls stopped. The texts dried up. Even my sister's husband went quiet. His once smug LinkedIn updates about disruption and innovation mysteriously vanished. Because now he was under official investigation. A formal ethics complaint had been submitted to the state's Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission. I wasn't the only one involved anymore. His former co-founder had stepped forward after reading the filings. Apparently, I wasn't the first target of his strategic takedowns. But I might be the last. Meanwhile, my parents did what they always did, tried to rewrite history. I received an email from my mother. Long, flowery. Exhausting. She said she'd been pressured into signing the complaint. That she didn't understand what she was doing. That she thought it would never go anywhere. I didn't reply. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry it didn't work. And as for my sister? She started damage control, quietly stepping away from her consulting job, claiming mental health leave. I'd seen the email forwarded internally. No mention of me. No ownership of the lies. Just silence. But that's the thing about silence. It used to be where I hid. Now, it's where I hunt. And they were finally realizing. The brother they tried to erase wasn't just still standing. He was documenting everything. And the final piece of this story wouldn't be delivered in anger. It would be filed in court. The court date was set for mid-March. Not for me, for them. My sister, her husband, and their LLC were named in a civil suit filed by my legal team. The charges: defamation, malicious prosecution, interference with professional licensing, fraudulent impersonation through digital platforms. And because we documented everything, from IP logs to metadata to financial transactions, their version of the story unraveled before it could even be told. When the subpoena landed, I didn't hear from any of them. No phone call. No email. No apology. Just quiet. The kind that used to make me feel small. Uninvited. Ashamed. But not anymore. The silence now felt earned. It was the sound of power correcting the record. Meanwhile, Judge Lawson sent a personal letter to the bar committee. Mr. Hamilton is a model of professionalism and integrity. The court regrets that family vendettas were allowed to exploit its time and trust. I framed it, not to show off, but to remind myself, your name only has value when you protect it like it's all you've got. My firm promoted me the same week. And as I updated my credentials online, I noticed something poetic. My sister's husband had deleted every mention of startup founder from his profile. He didn't change careers. He just ran out of lies. The settlement was offered on a rainy Thursday. $220,000 in damages. A written, notarized retraction from my sister and her husband. And a signed commitment never to challenge my professional credentials again, in any state, under any entity. I accepted none of it. Instead, I requested a public court ruling. I wanted this to be permanent. On record. Searchable. I wasn't doing this for vengeance anymore. I was doing this for every black sheep who gets discredited by the very people meant to protect them. For every kid who studied by lamplight while being told they'd never amount to anything. For every professional whose name is weaponized by family politics. The ruling came 2 weeks later. In my favor. The judge called the false complaint an intentional act of professional sabotage, carried out with malice and deception. I walked out of that courtroom not just intact, but reborn. My reputation wasn't merely restored. It was fortified. A few months later, I received a handwritten letter from Judge Lawson. They tried to question your legitimacy, but they only proved your integrity. You are exactly the kind of advocate this profession needs. I framed that one too. And now, I still practice law, still speak softly. But when people ask what drives me, I tell them, sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's a loaded chamber.